Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 4 preview for the Charles Schwab Challenge. And here in this live stream, we're going to get you ready for the prop and betting side of things. But first off, I'll look at some of the course conditions, as well as averages from moving day, as well as on Underdog and Prize Picks, and with some of the matchup boards on sportsbooks, how to attack all of your exposure. But first and foremost, before we dive on into the details, I hope that you guys are all having a fantastic weekend. Saturday is treating you guys nicely with everything. Personally, want to get back onto the horse a little bit with some of my prop exposure, but in terms of how we're doing fantastic here in sunny South Florida. Hopefully it's likewise with all of you out there. We got Paul down there, Bobby, Joseph as well. I got to say, 3 regulars that we see around here. And yeah, Paul, where is Gsluke? You're beating him down there in the chat, which is impressive of its own. But cheers to everyone out there. We do have a little bit of bourbon in the cup, Joseph. So cheers out there to anyone celebrating. And I've already gotten 3 slips for our prop exposure. So we're going to have a lot to go through. So any specific bets that you want me to go ahead and analyze for you, go ahead, throw down in the chat, and we'll go through all of that for you. But we're going to go through most of what you see here on these streams, which weather, stat averages, and then all those props that we mentioned before. But if there's like anything specifically that you want my take on that maybe we're not going to touch on here, it could be fantasy stuff. It could be like other bets for outrights for Sunday. Just feel free to go ahead and let me know. So cheers to you guys, and let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. So this is some pretty strong bourbon, so excuse me if I make some funny faces here. It's a little stronger than what I'm used to, actually. And it gives me a little acid reflux too, but when we keep the sips bite-sized, then we're not going to have too much of an issue with it. So you can see the round 3 averages on the screen here. It only played 0.01 shots over par, which honestly was easier than I thought. I thought it'd be closer to at least a half a stroke over par. I think the pin locations were a lot easier than really what I could judge. And tomorrow, though, that is going to change. So that half a stroke over par scoring average is, I think, going to come to fruition. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the conditions for Sunday look the exact same from the weather perspective. So it's the same wind direction. Also the same intensity of the wind that you have throughout the day. In fact, it'll be a little gustier in the morning hours tomorrow, but as the day goes on, that golf course is going to continue to dry. And just like you've seen for all 3 days so far, the morning wave is going to get some advantageous conditions. So I would say the majority of your fades you'd want to take towards the PM wave, but the AM side of things, because the winds are going to be kicking, are not going to be like round 2 averages. Round 2, it played 1 stroke under par when it was calm and they had the more receptive conditions. Tomorrow, it's going to be much more in line with today, where it did play slightly under par for the morning wave, but not like a 1.5 stroke under par average. So it's going to be pretty difficult. We'll talk about the pin locations here in just a minute, but these averages across the board, I think are going to get a little more difficult. So your birdie average with some of the harder to reach pins is, I think, going to get closer to about 3 per round. Your bogey average, I think, is going to go up to about 3.3 per round. And you'll see that when we go through some of the spots that they have the hole tomorrow. They're super hard to get to compared to where they were today. And I don't think the fairway or green averages, or I should say the fairway average in particular, is going to move that much. That'll probably still be about 7.8 out there tomorrow. But this green and regulation average, I do think, is going to go down quite substantially. So I would say about 10.5 per round is where I have the round 4 projected average, partially because of those harder to reach locations. They're a little bit tucked further into the greens, which is going to bring more left to right dispersion into play. But on top of that, I don't think they're going to water the greens as much overnight. And that's usually something you see at this golf course, is that on Sundays, the greens get as firm as you ever see on the PGA Tour. In fact, a few years ago, they were almost dying during the Sunday round. I'm not sure they're going to take it to quite that level tomorrow, because the pin locations look pretty tough themselves. They don't really have to take it to that kind of a level with the firmness. But for whatever reason, the golf tournament planner here, the PGA Tour, makes Sunday at this golf course significantly harder than all the other rounds. So if you take a look at Data Golf, for example, they put up predicted scoring averages for all the given days. They have it at 0.7 over par. So they have it not only 5 over par, like I think, but even harder than that sort of a projection. So when we go through the pin locations, you'll probably tend to agree with me, but the winds being in about the 13 to 14 mile an hour range in the afternoon is going to be legit stuff to contend with. And though the wind gusts aren't close to 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, like we've seen a couple times in 2025, because of how firm and fast this golf course is, it could play a half a stroke to a stroke harder in the afternoon. So account for that in your projections. I'd say most of your positive stance plays you'd want to take towards the middle to early half of tee times, whereas those fades, as I was talking about, you probably want to take with the later tee times if possible. So we're going to go through shots gained metrics later when we're going through specific plays. Let me see if they posted the pins. They do have them on the sports books, which is how I knew about them before they even posted them over here. So you may say, like, Luke, how do you know where they are if you haven't even seen them yet? All of these pins were on the sports books about 2 hours ago. So that's something that if you check early, you end up seeing them on those sites. And based on what I'm looking at here, they were the exact same as what you have on those websites. So it's crazy how accurate they can get those ahead of time. They get sent them ahead of time is obviously what that's showing us. But let's go through a few of these pin locations together. So I'm going to bring up the shot tracker. I already have a good feel for these, so we're going to go through the summary rather quickly this time. But I'll give you guys a good taste for what they're going to face. Is it Blanton's? It's not. It is a Four Roses single barrel. So it's probably the whiskey that I have the most, especially because it's not super expensive, but it's my favorite. It's super smooth. It's a relatively high alcohol count, which is why I may make some funny faces when I'm drinking it, but it tastes a lot better than like it feels going down, if that makes sense. So the more I have, the less it impacts me. So you can see like this sip's going to be 10 times easier. Let's go through these pin locations though, because the first couple holes today were super easy, if you guys remember. And I don't think it's going to be as easy tomorrow. It's smoother than I give it credit for, to be honest. Let's go to hole number 1. So hole 1 is going to be on this left side of the green. It's going to be about where my cursor is right now, which I would say it's about the same difficulty as today. So I still think you're going to see a lot of birdies because it's going to be playing in the same wind direction for round 4. And it was directly downwind off the tee, which not only did it lead to people hitting monstrous drives. For example, Ben Griffin hit his drive 352 and he landed it just over this bunker here. So he didn't get a whole lot of rollout. You're going to have not only it downwind tomorrow, but you're going to get all of the extra rollout with it being firm and fast. So this hole is going to be extremely gettable just because of that wind direction. This whole location, though, is maybe like marginally more difficult than today. Expect to see a ton of birdies at hole number 1, though. So this maybe doesn't give you an example for how tough the round is going to be. But, you know, even if they used a hard pin here, you're going to see a birdie rate probably close to 65%. But hole 2 is where they start to change it up. So hole 2 today was towards this front part of the green. Tomorrow it's in the back right. So there was about a 50-60% birdie rate over to the front edge. You had people driving it just in front of the green because just like the tee shot was directly downwind. Because it's further into this green, though, I still think you're going to see birdies, right? It's still going to be like a 35, maybe 40% birdie rate, maybe slightly lower than that, seeing how the putting is around this hole. But it's a longer chip shot. So if you leave your shot in front of this green, it could be like a 60-yard chip shot, which isn't the same thing as hitting a bunker shot into this hole location. And you had people even driving this green in round number 3. I think it's going to play to like a 0.1, a 0.2 shot difference in the harder direction. So that's an example of one maybe getting slightly harder. But as we go through these pins, you're really going to get a test for what we're talking about. So hole 3 is down here on this bottom shelf. I'd say it's about the same difficulty as today, maybe marginally easier. So the start of the horrible horseshoe isn't the worst pin location that we've ever seen. But, and this is a massive but, hole number 4 is a horribly difficult pin location. So you can see on this graphic, it's towards this front right. In fact, if we take a look at the slopes, it's right on top of this ridge where you have a false front in front of it and some slope heading this direction. And then to the right of it, you have a slope that goes the whole way off the screen. And you may say, Luke, what's the big deal with that sort of a pin location? Well, if you miss here towards the left side, you can easily put it past that pin location off the green. And if you hit it over the green, which is going to happen because of how firm the green complexes are, you have that slope just past of it, where if you hit it past and you go off of the screen, it's going to trickle down like 20 to 30 yards. So it's going to be very difficult because it's a 250-yard par three, no matter where they put that pin location. But this pin location has some real dicey around the green shots that you might end up having to hit to it. And at 250 yards, I mean, the green regulation rate's going to be like 30%, maybe even lower, depending on how firm and bouncy this complex is going to be. That's going to come into play for a lot of the field tomorrow. So this pin location is going to lead to doubles. That's the kind of thing I'm seeing here at hole number 4. Hole 5 is another one where it's actually not that terrible, but it is harder than today. Today, it was in the middle left over here, which it was in a low spot, maybe even in a bowl if you were hitting a wedge in for your third shot. Now it's in this back right corner. So I would say if they put it in this back left corner, which they can tuck it the whole way back there if they want to, this back right corner, though, would be the second most difficult pin location. Longer shot in, it's already like a 480-yard par 4. But on top of that, you've got a little slope in front of this pin location that is going to make chipping to it hard if you miss to this front right. But also, if you miss over the screen and you're chipping to this pin location, just like hole 4, you can take the slope and end up off of the green. So you're going to see that on a lot of these pins. There's just a very fine margin from a good shot that's like 5 or 6 feet away for a par, and then the ball going completely off the green and you chipping once again. You're going to see that like on 6 or even 7 holes throughout this golf course. Hole number 6 is in the front left. So this is one of the easier pins, I would say, because it's a shorter shot in. You're hitting a wedge. So that front pin location isn't that daunting. But if you miss the fairway at 6, this front pin location is going to be super hard. So I guess we do have to mention that, because I think the scoring average here might actually get harder, because if you miss the fairway at 6, there's no way you can get close to this pin. It's almost like you have to lay up and then try and chip for the pars, the smart thing, because if you were to go for it out of the rough, you're going to hit on the green and end up going over. The chip to that front side of the green is not easy, because you have a lot of green to work with, but it is a long chip shot towards that front side. And then if you go for it, you miss left or right, then you might even have a short-sided bunker shot to the left. And I would say, like, if you end up flailing it to the right or something, like that up and down would probably be the easiest out of all of them when you're pin high and you're going to that pin. But it's a sneaky hard pin if you don't hit that fairway. And I think that's kind of a prevailing narrative here as well, is you've got to hit fairways if you want any chance at it. This pin at 7 is down towards this right corner. You do have this right side slope that could become problematic, but it is at a lower spot of the green. So it's probably about the same difficulty as today, I would say. Hole 8 is in the back left corner. So I'll show you guys the pin on the pin sheet, but it's in this very back left corner of the boomerang. You would probably think it's harder, and I would say it's 100% going to be more difficult. If you take a look at the angle from the tee, and there's a reason why I came to back here, this tree on this front right corner, if I could get this to stop and we could load it in, is going to come into play for this pin location. So, I mean, the smart play is just to aim where the pin was today and then take a 2-putt par. But people that go left are going to hit it into this creek. There's going to be doubles, triples galore here at hole number 8. It's one of the more brutal pin locations that you're going to have. And next you have hole 9, which is in the middle right side of the screen. It's about where my cursor is right now, which is one of the harder spots because it's on a little high spot towards this right side. It's not like the high spot in the back, which is the true high spot of this complex. But over here on the right, it's maybe the second most difficult pin location that you can get there at 9. It's not the most difficult, though. Next up, you have 10. It's just towards the front side. This is, in theory, a birdieable hole, but just like you had the other short par 4 at the front pin location, I think it was what? Let's go look back. Was it 9? No, it was a hole 6, right? With that front pin location. If you missed the fairway, it was going to be problematic. It's the same thing here, because towards this front side, it doesn't look like that much of an imposing pin location. But if you're coming in from the rough, you're going to have no chance at stopping it close there. But on top of that, look at these trees. And I guess I got to take it out of the green view so that you can see the trees I'm talking about. But if you miss to the left or the right here, if you miss to the right, this tree is going to be blocking you out. And if you miss out to the left, these trees are going to make it impossible. And even this tree out here, right, is going to make it impossible to go for that pin location. So, you know, if you can hit the fairway towards the right side, so about like 20 paces right of this one, I think you could see birdies because it is an easy pin if you have a wedge in, but you have to be so precise off the tee really to set that up. Next up, you have 11, which is in the back right. This is a par 5, so it's still scoreable. It's still going to see a well under par scoring average, but it's about the same difficulty as today, I would say. The only issue is that if you're going for it in 2 and you miss right into this hazard, it becomes a bogey hole at that point, if not even a lost ball into that super deep stuff. You've got hole 12 up next, which is in the middle left portion of the green complex. It's about the same difficulty as today, but it will be playing directly into the breeze, just like round number 3. So, and with this little bit of a false front in front of the pin location, it's, I would say, sneaky difficult, probably a little bit harder than round 3 too. 13 is in the back right. This is maybe the hardest pin and hardest hole that you'll have on the golf course. Not only is it a tiny portion of the green over here, so it's super, difficult to end up hitting it close, but it's playing directly into the wind, just like you had for last hole. So a little bit of a backstop. So if you can hit it in this small portion, you're going to be rewarded with some backstop close to the pin, but you've got to execute a really, really difficult pin location, a really difficult iron shot to get that shot close. 14 is in the front side, so this is an easier pin location here, but it's not easy by any means because this false front is going to be super hard for chipping. So if you miss the fairway and you have to lay up just in front of the green, it's a doable up and down, but not a gimme one just because of that slope. Next up, you've got 15, which is a middle front pin location, which if you're hitting a wedge and you hit the fairway, it's going to be easy to get close to it because you might even be able to use this backstop behind it to hit something to like 5 or 6 feet. But if you miss the fairway, which I've said like 10 times at this point, that's really going to be a massive factor, I would say, for round 4. You have no chance to get close to the front pin location. So I would say for birdies, like, a lot of times we're looking for power guys, people that can take on the par 5s. There's only 2 par 5s at this course, and I think accuracy is a bigger deal. So maybe you want to look for like a different style of player here. 16 is the hardest pin and the hardest hole on the golf course. It hasn't been the hardest hole for any of the days so far, but what I can tell you, and as a noob, as somebody that was newer to PGA DFS, I had no idea last year how much, and I shouldn't even say newer to PGA DFS. I had been doing this for a while. Newer to breaking down golf courses and pin locations is more so the thing I meant to say there. As I didn't know how much this like natural area and this water comes into play when you have this back left pin location. And I remember it last year being absolute carnage. It played into downwind today. It's going to be playing downwind tomorrow, which means if you get a shot that's moving from right to left, riding on that breeze close to that little hazard over here, it's not only going to ride that and move even further offline, but it's going to have all that extra momentum and probably hit that slope and go into the water. And last year, that's exactly what ended up happening. You had a lot of people going for this back left pin that ended up taking 4s, 5s, even 6s on hole number 16. I would expect that to be the same thing. Even if it's downwind, it's going to play super, super hard just because that pin location leads to so many big numbers. I will say, though, that it is downwind and a back left pin, so there's going to be birdies at 16, just like you saw for today in this like back right pin. But the perspective for like big numbers is just so much bigger when you have it towards the left side of that green. And then 17 is a back right pin. This is maybe one of the top 3 hardest pins that you have on the golf course. So it's towards this back right corner. So you have to take it all carry over this bunker. And let me show you the tee shot, because this is really the genius of the last few holes. And this is why you really have to kind of know what you're talking about when you break down these golf courses, because you won't really get an appreciation for this. If you don't hit it in the left side of this fairway, you have 0 chance at going for the min. I mean, 0 chance. In fact, if you are right here where this 1 is, this is like the borderline of where you can go for the pin location or not. Because look at this, right? You have this tree right here to the right. You also have a second tree up here that can also overhang that pin location, that if you're not coming in from the left side of this fairway, you have 0 look at the green. So even if you hit the fairway over here, let's say where my cursor is right now, you have to aim at the center of the green and take a 2-putt. There's not going to be that many birdies at 17 unless you set up the perfect drive into this hole. And frankly, I would rather be just into the rough here on the left side, obviously not on the trees. That's a big no-go. But if you were just like a couple paces into the rough over here, I'd rather be here than over here in the fairway on the right side. And I know that sounds crazy, but you would have 10 times better chance hitting it closer to the hole if you don't have those trees in your way. Because if you're in the fairway, you might be able to shape the shot over there. But depending on the wind direction, it might not be possible to shape it that far, right? If the wind is howling off the right, which I think it is, I think the wind is like down off the right on hole 17 here. I don't even think it's possible to slice it that far or hook it that far if you happen to be Brian Harman or Robert McIntyre trying to hit it into that back left pin location. It's another sneaky hard pin, especially with that wind direction that, in which, by the way, with that wind direction, you're going to see a ton of people missing to the left, which if you're in the rough over here, I actually don't think that's a massive issue. But what you're going to see is you're going to see people going, okay, I guess I can miss left, right? They'll aim a little left, and then the wind will continue taking that direction, and they're going to end up in the trees, which if you're in the trees on the left, you're shit out of luck too. And then finally, 18 is in the back left corner of the screen complex. So it brings in the water to the left, which again, last year, I didn't really get a good sense for just how close this water is because of how steep the slope is over here. If you miss the green to the left on the fly, it is almost certainly going to be in the water. Now, if you hit the green and it trickles off, that's not going to go into the water in the penalty area. But like I said, if you end up missing the green on the fly with your shot, which can happen, like today, it was not going to happen, right? It's on the right side here. No one's going to aim even close to the water. Like you'd have to shank it to end up. You have to be you or me to hit it in the water on that kind of shot. But now that the pin location's over here and their aim is adjusted by 20 yards to the left, you are going to see people that hit it to the left. And that's why this pin location plays a whole lot harder. So in general, this golf course going to be spiced up. The conditions are going to be pretty much the same as today, which were already pretty hard to begin with. But that birdie average dropping to 3 per round, that's why I'm so confident about that happening. But that bogey average, and hell, I wish we had the double bogey average on here because I think it was like 0.2 per round today. The double bogey average might be like 0.5 per round tomorrow. I think that's where a lot of the change is going to be, is I think mistakes are going to be amplified a lot more than what you've seen over the first few days. So don't be surprised if you see some really nasty scores on the golf course. And that's my take on how this thing is going to play. So next thing we're going to do is focus on some of our exposure. So we're going to go through props on Prize Picks and Underdog over here. Like I said, any sort of bets that you want me to deep dive, feel free to let me know. After we go through Underdog and Prize Picks is when we're going to look at some of the matchups and 3 balls on some of the sports books. So if you're here for that on the sportsbook side of things, just sit in tight for the next 5 to 10 minutes while we go through a few of the different slips I've already entered. So he said, how are we? Fantastic. Cheers to you. He said, out of the top 5, who do I think is going to regress the most? Matty Schmid, man. And there's really no other better answer to that question. The guy's gained like 10.5 strokes putting this week. So in fact, we're going to talk about Matty Schmid here in a few minutes, but definitely him. Seems like the number 4 pin is right where all the tee shots from Friday were funneling to. I don't really agree with that, right? And it all depends on where you're aiming. So, maybe for that round, they ended up getting close there, but that's if you were aiming to that sort of a pin location, right? Like, remind me if I'm wrong. I guess we could just take a look at exactly where that was. So let's go to Friday and just show you that, right? So Friday, the pin locations, change this to round number 2, and then go back to hole 4. You've got to realize that the pin location that day was on the left side, right? So what people were doing there was saying, okay, I'm just going to hit it to the fat side of the green and then putt over there to the left side. Their target is going to be so much different towards that right side over there that slope is going to take people off the right corner. You just can't look at it apples to apples, right? Because if you look at the scatter shot for all those different rounds, like for example, for round 1, where it was a little bit of a different pin location, it actually wasn't that different for round 1. Let's refresh our memories over here towards the right side. Like I think you could use the round 1 scatter plot as maybe a little bit of a better example. It played like 0.5 over par in round number 1. So, when they put the pins over here to the left side, that's what it's been for the last 2 days. Round 3, it was like over here, same thing for round number 2. Scoring average has only been like 0.1, 0.3 over par. Those 2 rounds. Round 1, when it played the hardest at this hole, by far the hardest at hole number 4, was when it was on this side of the green. And I think a lot of it has to do with that slope, which even round 1, you can see over here, was pretty far away from it, right? It was like 30 paces away. Now it's going to be literally right next to that pin. So it's going to be a different beast tomorrow for sure. Like that hole, unless they move up the tee box, I would put a lot of money on it playing the hardest that it has the entire week. Said Jack, Hardy, or Rick? Okay, you're saying for the guys up top to come back down to earth. Oh, Ricky Fowler. I hope you're wrong about it because I'm a big Ricky Fowler fan. But if he misses a bunch of fairways tomorrow, I'll be pretty stoked about that. Nick Hardy, though, I've got to agree with you on that, man. I mean, he's been really struggling lately. In fact, I faded him today for strokes, and that did not work. He obviously had a really good round, but he's lost strokes worldwide to the field in 16 straight worldwide events. So that's why I faded him. I thought that was a pretty good reasoning for trying to take a stance against a player. But you're right. Tomorrow, he's probably going to come back down to earth. So I like that. What's going on, Antonio? What's going on, Derek? He said, hey, Luke, thanks to you, you have a huge sweat. He said you're fifth in the $5 GPP to win $5,000. Yeah, I'm not doing as well as you, Derek. I'm a little bit further down the leaderboards, but I'm slightly into the positive. I've got 38 6 of 6s, though. So I went from dog shit before today to about break even. So I have to think, right? If I went from like $200 to making slight profit after today's round, tomorrow we're probably going to be making some money. So as long as I'm into the positive, I'll be happy. And I hope you take the thing down. I don't have really any chance to win first place, at least based on what I was looking at. I hope you do then, man. You said, knowing your luck, Glover and Batiel blow up. I sure hope they don't, man. Fingers crossed, knocking on wood for you. And cheers to you, my man. I hope it goes well. He said, only Scotty can cut it in there. So I'm guessing that's 17 that you're talking about. Boy, oh boy. That Four Roses is, like I said, stronger I'm used to. He said, best shot shaper in the world. I agree with you on that, though. He said, you mentioned Hideki over 10.5 greens. You took it in, you cashed. Is it playable again? So, yeah, I didn't end up playing that myself. So I'm glad that you took advantage and were able to cash out on that. I kind of wish I did now because, I mean, he had a hell of a round, like you were mentioning. You're saying, is it playable again? I would say that it's maybe not as good a value as yesterday. If you can get a slight multiplier on it, like maybe on Underdog, they end up taking it to like 1.05x or 1.1x, then I might play it again. But as of right now, probably not. Is it thoughts on KK for tomorrow? Oh, God, who's KK? Kurt Kitayama, right? Oh, boy, you made me use my brain. It's a little late to make me do so, but hey, I figured it out. Thoughts on Kurt Kitayama? Round 3, he had a much better ball striking day than rounds 1 and 2. Rounds 1 and 2, he kind of looks like a fade to me because, you know, round 1, he lost strokes ball striking. Round 2, he was about a neutral ball striking. And he was one of the few guys towards the top that wasn't 1-2 strokes into the positive with their ball striking. But today he got that thing figured out. So he's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. He was like a 4 out of 10 before, but he got it figured out. He said, cheers, thank you. You're about to have a drink and watch the new Mission Impossible. Sounds like a heck of a way to spend your Saturday, man. I'm actually heading to the casino with a few buddies. And hopefully we can make some money on blackjack tonight because, like I said, props weren't the best today. So let's try and make $500 back tonight. That'd be nice. Novak, top 10 sweat for tomorrow. Yeah, man, he's on the card. Who else? We got Eric Cole, top 20. We also have Ricky Castillo, top 20. He's currently T18. I've got a pretty decent betting card right now as long as our guys finish strong. So I'm like I said, cautiously optimistic, just like I am with Ricky Fowler, man. I hope Ricky has a good Sunday. He said, blackjack is always a good sweat. Dude, he's and he said, you love poker or roulette? Dude, blackjack? I was going to say something, but I probably shouldn't say it just in case Hard Rock Bet's listening because they run the casino I'm about to go to. I've got an edge on blackjack is all I'm going to say. And poker, I might play some poker late night. It depends on how many drinks I have, though, because my buddies like to drink me under the table at times. And poker's not best played when you're drinking, that's for sure. All right, let's go through some of these props. So any bets you want me to specifically deep dive, feel free to go through. Let me know in chat. But first prop we're going to take here is going to be a Matty Schmid under on greens. Actually, never mind. It was going to be a Matty Schmid under in greens, but I took him at 11.5 greens, and so kindly, the lines makers pushed him down to 11. So instead, I guess let's pivot, as some people would say, and let's go to Ricky. I was going to say, let's go to a Ricky Fowler under at 8.5 fairways, but just like the Matty Schmid line, they went ahead and bumped that as well. So I guess not a surprise that the Prize Picks line makers are bitch made, have no confidence in their self-esteem. And can't stand behind their projections, but yep, they bumped both of those. So let's go to Underdog first. Underdog probably not going to be as bump heavy, and we'll go back to Prize Picks. There were a few positive stance plays that we could take there for a slip, but just to give you guys a slip that I've actually already entered with the exact combination, let's start with the Tommy Fleetwood under on round strokes. It's going to be an under on Brian Harman birdies matched up with a Tom Kim under on birdies. So let's start with the 2 unders on birdies first, because it's pretty much the same idea with both of these players. They're at 3.5. I think the birdie average is going to drop to about 3 per round. And if you take a look at the averages for these players this year, you can see I had the green regulation stuff up. I wanted to talk about Matty Schmid with you guys. Dude, those lines makers, I only posted those like 15 to 20 minutes before we got on here, which, by the way, if you're part of my Patreon page, you would have conned those lines before they moved. Unfortunate that I can't, move those on to the live stream here. But just to show you these two before they end up moving, Tom Kim this year, number 134 when it comes to birdie or better percentage, and Brian Harman is number 117 when it comes to birdie or better percentage. So if the birdie average is going to be 3 per round, these are slightly above average players, but when it comes to birdie percentage, they aren't above average players. And on top of that, Tom Kim is really dealing with struggles with the putter. Brian Harman today had by far his best round of the week. So I think he's going to come back down to earth a little bit tomorrow. So that's part of the reason that I like that prop. But then also this Tommy Fleetwood prop that you see there at 69.5. He's minus 150 for his under on books. So that's why he has that 0.88x multiplier. And I'm okay playing it, because if you take that 0.88x and then you mix it in with the 2 fades, this is 5.29x. And on Prize Picks, a 3-leg slip is only a 5x payout. So, I'd prefer it close to the 6x that you can usually get for that 3x. But because we're getting line value on this Tommy Fleetwood prop, and by the way, just to show you the lines on these other 2 that we've taken, Brian Harman is minus 130 for his under. Tom Kim, if I can find that on here as well, is also, he was minus 130 for his under. Now he's minus 120 in that direction. Either way, though, with him being number 134 on tour in that category, I'm very comfortable taking that sort of an under, especially with these pin locations being in general a lot harder than what you had for today. The first 6 holes, I think there's 2 of them that looked easier than what you had for today. But the general rule of thumb is that it's looking like they're going to try and spice up the conditions a bit. So that's why we have the 2 fades in there. The Tommy Fleetwood one, by the way, the reason why I'll take his under is that he fits the style of golf course to a T. He's normally a very good winds player, a guy that plays well on firm and fast golf courses, hence why he finishes well at the harder tracks on the PGA Tour, whether that be major championships or your signature events. He's usually in that top 10, top 20 most times. And this week, he had his worst round of the week out here in round 3. And I think he's going to bounce back. So something 1 under par, I think, is reasonable for a player of his caliber, especially with that kind of a sportsbook line value behind it. So if you can catch that right now, hopefully before this Harman or Kim prop ends up getting a multiplier towards the under, it's a whole 5.29x, which frankly, for a 3-leg parlay, isn't that terrible on a site like Underdog, especially where it's not like there's a lot of correlation here, but you get the correlation with the 2 birdie props. And then Tommy Fleetwood, I think, is just really good line value. And I almost took a guy at 70.5, like Griot. They have 70.5. He was also juiced towards the under. I almost took that because it's okay, shoot even par. It's not like you have to shoot even par. You can play hard and you can shoot even par just being slightly above the field average, right? If it plays a half a stroke over par, it's not like you're asking that much. Whereas to make 4 or 5 plus birdies on a hard golf course like this with only 2 par 5s is asking for the conditions to cooperate quite a bit. So I like the kind of value that we're getting on that sort of slip. And then on Prize Picks, because, oh goodness, these guys just love to bump stuff on me like crazy. One of the positive stance plays that I took was Jordan Spieth at 70, and they bumped him down to 69.5. I'd say I'm surprised that I'm not, but let's see what Eric Cole's at. Did they bump him by 0.52? I'd have to think if they bumped all the other ones by 0.5, why not stop at just 3 of the 4? They also bumped Eric Cole down from 71 strokes the whole way down to 70.5. So every single prop that I've already entered on Prize Picks has moved. But you know what? We could try and find a 3rd slip to go ahead and enter here, because there were a few other ideas that were going through the mind. So it's unfortunate that they've been so bump heavy, which honestly don't even understand, because I mean, I thought there was value on the props that we've taken, but it's not like they were like massive sportsbook line values. Like the Ricky Fowler prop I was going to point out, which was the one that was at 8.5 for fairways. He was minus 140 for the under, right? That's a decent value. It's not massive value though. And he's gone over it in 2 of the first 3 rounds so far. So it's not like he's gone under all 3 rounds and he was value under. It's just the prize picks line makers are being a little bit bitch made right now. That's for damn sure. How are Batia's metrics looking? Let's take a look for you. Good old Akshay. So his metrics were into the positive on approach and off the tee, and then he was a slight negative with the short game. It's probably a 7 or even an 8 out of 10 with the stat profile. So I like that quite a bit. You said you mentioned you almost killed the greens a few years ago. Yeah, that was because they were going to renovate the golf course. Yeah, that is true. That is worth mentioning, but they also firm out the golf course most other years as well. So I should have been a little bit more clear with what I was saying before. That was the most extreme example of that happening. But even before that, I can remember a lot of round 4s at this golf course. The scoring average was like 1.5, 2 over par. In fact, just to kind of show you what I was talking about with that, I'll bring up Data Golf real quick and show you some of these round 4 averages. They get kind of out of hand at the Charles Schwab Challenge. So the thing I love about Data Golf, by the way, when it comes to researching a lot of these golf courses, is that they make it easy to go round by round. Last year, for example, it played 2.25 over par. That's a pretty drastic example of it. The year that they were renovating the golf course, it played 1.6 over par. Year before that, though, right, it still played 2 over par. So, like, what you can see is that no matter what, it's either the hardest or maybe the second hardest round that you're seeing in all these given years. That's not by chance. And this year it was the 3rd hardest. That was back in 2020, and the golf course was starting to get shredded by a lot of these players. But in general, especially over the last few years with the kind of setup that they figured out here, they really firm up these greens as the week goes on. And sometimes it's out of their discretion. Like some of those times back in like 2019, 2020, where it was like the 2nd or the 3rd hardest round out of the 4, they had rain that softened up the golf course. So it was kind of like out of their control in terms of the difficulty in round number 4. But with the absence of rain for tomorrow, they're going to get exactly what they're hoping for. Do I see them getting 10 greens or just stay away for Schmid? Yeah, let's go back to that. So, I mean, we're going to find a slip here to take together, but at 11, like, I don't think it's the worst play for an under even still. It's just that the line value on the sports books isn't really there. He was only minus 125 for the under, so I'm actually really surprised that they bumped that one so quick. I guess they agree with me that he's going to struggle with all the pressure of being in contention, but at 11.5, he was minus 125 under. So I guess that's the only counterpoint, is that he's so close to even money at 11 that the 0.5 bump might be a little bit too much, but I do think he's going to struggle. I mean, he's gone under it in 2 of the 3 rounds at this point. This 11 line, not even the 11.5, he's gone under this line in 2 of 3 rounds. And considering it's the hardest setup, I don't think it's the worst play. Yeah, my boy Jordan under 69.5. I got him under 70. So that's the only issue with that one. That was one of the other props that I wanted to point out. I still think 69.5 is decent though. So like, I hate to say that like this could be the slip that you take, because it is like a 0.5 bump in either direction, but I really don't think it's the worst play. And just to give you the thought process when it comes to Jordan, like what I was thinking there is they don't have a live line for Jordan, but Harris English is minus 130 under. JT Poston is at 69.5, and he's minus 120 out there towards the under. Jordan Spieth's a better player than both of those guys. He also has better course history than both of those players. Historically, he's a good wind player. He's got a really good short game, which plays well on a day like this. And he's also a guy with a bunch of experience around Colonial and Texas golf courses when they play firm and when you're going to get these kind of wins. So for him to shoot under par, I think is pretty reasonable. So I'm not going to make this the play that we actually talk up on Prize Picks here for the stream. I am going to try and find something that's maybe a little bit better value. But if you wanted to take those after the 0.5 bumps, I guess you could. It's just, like I said, the Patreon people that were able to enter that before are probably the ones that should enter that only. But let me look at this birdie or better board just to see what we're cooking with here. And they do have Tom Kim, also Brian Harmon at 3.5 birdies. So if you wanted to take one of those two and then maybe match it up, with a prop, you could do that here on Prize Picks. But Jordan's up at 4 birdies over here. So, okay, that's interesting to know. A bunch of 3.5 birdies. They have a lot more selection than what we have on the Underdog side. Underdog only has like 15 guys posted for majority of the different categories. 4.5 birdies for Scotty. Kind of curious where they have the sportsbook odds on that. I'd probably have him juiced under, but I think he's juiced towards the over based on the Underdog odds. And yeah, he's minus 145 over. I mean, that's tempting. I mean, minus 145 odds. It is world number 1. So I said that I thought he would maybe be juiced under. Sometimes I've just got to admit that like I'm wrong on something, or maybe that I don't have the correct read on that situation. Minus 145 odds is kind of hard to overlook, especially when it's Scotty. Like, I mean, if it was some slapdick, I'd go, okay, my judgment is going to override this kind of decision. But let's throw Scotty in there, and then let's find a fade that would make some sense. And I think fairway lines could make sense for fades. The fairways, I don't think they're going to firm up that much. I think the greens are actually going to firm up a little bit more than what you have with the fairways. But let's see what we have for the sportsbook lines on like an English, maybe a Poston at that 8.5 mark. So English is minus 150 under. This has got to be it. This has got to be the slip that we take. So it's a minus 145 over, a minus 150 towards the under. Firm golf course, I think, is going to make hitting fairways a little bit harder. And then, of course, you have world number 1 chasing down the lead. He's minus 145 towards the over. So that's the Underdog slip. That's the Prize Picks slip that we're going to mix in. And now let's find some matchups that take over here for Sunday, because today for round 3's action, 3 balls ended up going quite well. We ended up entering the 3 on Hard Rock Bet that had the perfect odds, and 2 of the 3 ended up hitting. So I think it was Seabez, it was Eric Cole that ended up coming through. Ryan Gerard was the one of the 3 that didn't end up hitting, but ended up being profit when you hit it like a plus 150, a plus 180 out of your 3 props. It's going to be well into the positive. So not bad, not mad about that at all. That happened last night with Ricky and his fairways. Went from 8.5 to 8 in about an hour. Yeah, Prize Picks is just all over me when it comes to these bumps, man. But like I said, that's why it pays to be here on the live stream, so I can give you guys that live value. And of course, the Patreon page is always the place to be, because you guys can get those as soon as I enter them. But let me get a sip of this whiskey. Let me see what we have for these matchups. And I'm normally looking for plus 150s or more, and we're going to keep that the rule for the most part here. The thing we have to keep in mind when we're going through these 3 balls, and while I sip my whiskey and look at these, is the windy conditions. It's Sunday. It's a firm and fast golf course. It's going to be a grind fest. Who are the kind of players that we want to play in a grind fest? And, you know, a Kuchar at plus 205, I must say, is kind of piquing my interest. I'll throw him into the shopping cart while I get a sip of this and while we go through the rest of the board. But his wily veteran experience, I think, could go a really long way on the kind of day that we're going to get tomorrow. Maybe we should look at some Gary Woodland stats, I would say. Wily veteran as well. Very used to firm and fast conditions. And in round 3, he gained off the tee. Approach play, though, definitely could have been better. He lost 0.3 strokes in that category. Let's look at Kuchar, too, for that matter. I know Kuchar had a very disappointing day, so I guess if we're going to hold it against Gary, we should probably hold it against Kuchar, too. And it was the same exact thing, where he gained off the tee, but he lost with the approach play. The thing that's worth noting with Kuchar is that rounds 1 and 2, he was excellent with the irons, so I think a bounce back could be in order. Round 2, by the way, gained 3 strokes in that category. Round 1, he gained 2 strokes when it came to the approach play, so I think Kuchar could definitely still be in there. But let's look at Gary. So Gary round 1 sucked. Round 2 sucked. And then round 3 also sucked. Yeah, I hate to say it, Gare Bear, but you're getting taken out of there. That Kuchar at plus 205, though, before I was getting on live stream here, I did see that Hard Rock Bet was starting to post their 3 balls. Let me see what they have Kuchar at, because anything plus 205 or better, and I'm going to be a buyer. And sometimes they have even better numbers than what we have on these. So it's a Kuchar versus English and Perez. God, let's see. So wait, am I looking at the? Yeah, he's plus 230. I was just making sure I was looking at the right bet because he was such a different number. He's plus 230 on Hard Rock Bet. So an even better number that you can get here. I'm going to put an entire unit on that sort of a bet. So even bigger than I normally do for like a plus 230, just because it's better value than what we're getting on DraftKings. So I'm playing the Wiley veteran game there. Somebody that's been really good on the approach play the first few rounds, maybe has a bounce back tomorrow. And in windy conditions, I mean, Victor Perez, he's kind of just like an average guy in the field at this point. Like, I don't know, he's just kind of a guy that you have in that group. You can't overlook him, but he's not like a scary presence. Kind of scary to play against Harris English, but just to show you the stats with Harris English this week, kind of like a Gary Woodland, he's been off. I mean, round 1, he lost on approach. Round 2, he lost on approach. Same thing in round number 3. In fact, his approach play was the worst that it's been the entire week. So at that kind of number, plus 230 on Hard Rock, I'll take that for sure. But let's keep going through these and see what else we can find. There's always more value to add to the mix. I got her up at plus 175. Gim really struggled, might bounce back, but same thing with Gotterup. He also struggled. Now, the reason why I think Gotterup could really come back a little bit is that it was all short game that he sucked at. He lost 3.7 strokes with the putter today. So I'm not sure if the plus 175 is enough, but let me see what he is on Hard Rock Bet just for shits and gigs. Like, I mean, if they juice up all these odds, if you get him close to plus 200, like I might just have to go out there and play him. But yeah, unless we're getting those sort of odds, I'm probably not going to play it. So let's go through. So he's against Gim and Carson Young, just so that I can find this a little bit quicker. There he is. He's plus 180 on Hard Rock Bet. So yeah, not quite the plus 200 that we were kind of wishing that they'd post, but slightly better odds. We'll take him out of there for now. That was just a slight lean, we'd say. Hubbard, Putnam, Svensson. Yeah, it's a toss-up between 3 slapdicks. You had Whaley, Simpson, Malnati. That's another slapdick toss-up. In fact, Malnati at plus 285 might not be the worst play. He had really good shots gained metrics heading into round number 3. Just to show you that, he had gained like 4 strokes in approach round 2. Today, though, was the complete opposite. So if you're believing in a bounce back, maybe you take that sort of thing, but probably a stay away from me. Another group of slapdicks. I mean, on these groups of guys that absolutely suck, like no one that's that scary. Like, I hate to talk shit about Matt Wallace, but at this stage of his career, he's not really that big of a factor for me. Maybe you take the plus 270s, the plus 280s that you can find, but they're not going to be one of like the core plays or the actual bets that we point out here. I'm just saying, like in general, you take the long shot in that kind of scenario. Bazanehood at plus 205 is kind of interesting. I've got to say the Siwoo Harmon group, though, is a really tough matchup. So I probably don't want to 3-ball out of there just because that's kind of murderer's row with 3 pretty good players. Potgieter at plus 255 is kind of interesting just because Pearson Cootie is so volatile. I don't want to throw him out of there, but he is somebody that I think doesn't really set up that well for 3-balls just because of his low floor. Harry Hall really, really struggled in round number 3, whereas Potgieter, if we take a look at some of these shots gained metrics, lost it all with the short game. He lost 2.5 around the green. He lost strokes with the putter as well. Let me see what we can get on Hard Rock. Plus 255 is pretty aggressive odds. You give me plus 265 or more, and I might have to be a buyer on that sort of a matchup myself. Let's see. So he's against Hall or Cootie, so I can try and find this a little bit quicker. It's an absolute nightmare to go through these matchups. So he's only plus 220 on Hard Rock, so that's going to be a definite no-go for me. Hideki versus Castillo Ventura. Oh, we're going to have to look at this one. So Castillo, by the way, was one of the best ball strikers in round number 3. I know Hideki had a pretty good round himself, but he's minus money. I'm never going to bet that. Let me see what Castillo is here on Hard Rock. So he's against Hideki in Ventura. So we're trying to find on here. So he's plus 210 on Hard Rock Bet. I actually got a little boost I can enter. So I'm going to enter that one for a full unit as well. The Castillo at plus 210. And even if you get the plus 200, I honestly don't think that's the worst number. But obviously, if I can find a slightly better number on the book that I use, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that. And let's continue through the last few groups here. So Fleetwood at plus 130, I'm never going to play. I've got to admit, Rio plus 240. I mean, past champion here, pretty decent shots gained metrics. Like maybe he's somebody to consider. He's against Spawn in Fleetwood. So let me see if I can find that group to do some comparisons. So he's plus 225 only on Hard Rock. So that's going to be a stay away for me. Yeah, never betting the Scotty group because you never bet against Scotty and you never bet him at like minus 200. Just absolute scam odds. This final group, yeah, is also kind of a toss up. So it'll be these two matchups. If you can get the same number, I would bet it. Like, so on DraftKings, for example, I don't think it's the worst bet. But if you're on a site like Hard Rock Bet, where you can get the plus 210 on Castillo, you can get the plus 230, I think it was, on Matt Kuchar, then obviously take advantage of that. And sometimes FanDuel has slightly better odds on these sort of players as well. So make sure to do your line shopping if you have multiple sports books available. But the idea here is that we found two ball strikers going up against groups that maybe didn't have guys that we were that scared of, right? Guys that are kind of struggling this week, kind of spinning their wheels in either case. And as you can see, if we hit either of these two matchups, we're going to be up over a unit in either case because the plus 210 is going to put us up 1.1 units right there. You get the plus 230, that's going to be plus 1.3 units on that one alone, let alone if we end up hitting both of them at the same time. So if we go 0 for 2, that's unfortunately going to happen at times when you're taking long shots like this. But I thought that these two long shots were probably the best players that we had on the board. So that'll be it for the 3-ball / matchup section. Hopefully it gives you guys a pretty good perspective onto what I'm looking for in that process. For all the 3-balls matchups I end up playing, I post those in the Discord page of my Patreon page. And of course, for all the extra slips that I'm entering too, you guys can find those on my Patreon page as well. That's the Underdog and Prize Pick slips as I'm getting to them. So you guys can catch things before they end up bumping, as well as all the different pieces of exposure that I'm entering on these sports books as well. But I'll see if there's any last second questions that we need to go through there in chat, which by the way, if you have any of those, feel free to go ahead and fire on them right now before we go end up in closing this thing. But let's have ourselves a Sunday, right? It's been a pretty decent week so far, about break even for me on my props. Round 1 was amazing. Last 2 rounds have kind of just been over here in rounds 2 and 4. Let's finish off strong though. Last week we had like a plus 6 unit day, hit at like an 80% rate. It'd be pretty nice to do that for tomorrow as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already. Also subscribe so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. I know it's round 4 tomorrow and this event is going to end, but the rest of the year, Memorial for next week, we're going to have all the content covered for it. So of course, breakdowns, DFS and betting previews, showdown previews, also prop and betting streams like you're seeing right now, all throughout the rest of the season. So if you guys enjoyed this kind of breakdown, you want all of my takes throughout the rest of the year, which are free here on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to the YouTube channel. But of course, for every single slip that I'm playing, so literally every piece of exposure that I'm entering in my portfolio, that is what the Patreon page is for. Let's see. Where'd we leave off? And I guess we're good. Alrighty, guys. Best of luck with everything that you guys are doing. And I'll see you guys out there for the rest of the content next week.